African National Congress in Gauteng has extended the leave of absence of Health MEC Bandile Masuku. The party was expected to brief the media today on its decision about the recommendations of the Provincial Integrity Commission or PIC report on the PPE tender scandal, but the Provincial Executive Committee apparently feels the information provided by the PIC was inconsistent and inadequate. For more on this, we're joined now by SABC political reporter Samkele Maseko. Samkele, so let's talk about these developments. What exactly has happened and what brought this about?
Well, Teffo, essentially the ANC's Provincial Executive Committee here in Gauteng felt that the PIC report led by Trevor Fowler, who chairs the Integrity Commission in the province, was inadequate and contradictory when it comes to the issues of political oversight by the MEC of Health in the province, Dr. Bandile Masuku. You'd remember that this Integrity Commission report said that the MEC failed in his oversight role as the political head in the department when it comes to the procurement of personal protective equipment in the Department of Health. You'd remember that it also said that it did not act promptly when it came to the issues of corruption when it came to the department. He also cleared him of any wrongdoing when it comes to the issues of the tender that was awarded to Royal Pata, the company of Kusela Tiko's husband, to the tune of 127 million rands. He was cleared of any wrongdoing on that part. But Bandile Masuku did contest the veracity of the allegations or the findings of the PIC report when it came to the issue of oversight, saying that when the president declared the state of disaster in the country, it was 4 weeks later after that announcement by President Cyril Ramaphosa that the MEC of Health in the province, Dr. Bandile Masuku, instituted and asked for an SIU investigation on the tender procurement system in the Department of Health after some irregularities were being flagged in that department through the collaboration with the Premier of the province, David Makura. They called the SIU to come on board. You remember that the province of Gauteng has a memorandum of understanding with the SIU to investigate any matters that they deem to be flagged of issues of corruption in the province. So the PEC in the province felt that the PIC report was inadequate, was not good enough, and was not providing any clear clarity of any wrongdoing on the part of the MEC, and also contradictory on the part of the MEC having to manage the public relations or the public perception and image of the ANC and the government being corrupt when it came to the issues of tender procurement system in the province. So effectively, the report by Trevor Fowler has been taken by the PEC in the province, but they are not receiving it fully, and it will be sent back to the Provincial Working Committee in the province and to the ANC officials to process in the next 2 weeks. So they will report back to the PEC by the 13th of October. But interestingly, Teffo, the province is also relying on the SIU investigation to provide any clarity of any wrongdoing by the trio when it comes to the issues of the tenders of PPEs in the province. So effectively, the PIC report has not provided any clarity to the PEC in the province and to the residents of Gauteng in terms of fraud and corruption when it comes to Kusela Tiko, Bandile Masuku and Lesiba Masuku.
Samkele, we're hearing talk of divisions behind the scenes on the future of Bandile Masuku, and I wonder if any of it has to do with the legal standing of the PIC itself, what powers it enjoys. If you look at the national body, the Integrity Commission, that's also been said to lack teeth. Could this possibly be the same scenario playing itself out at provincial level?
There will always be those tensions and political imaginations going on within the African National Congress, particularly in the economic hub of the country, Gauteng. There are those who feel as if the MEC of Health, Bandile Masuku, has tainted the image of the African National Congress and has to go. You'd remember the conversation we had with the Provincial Secretary, Jacob Kawe, on Saturday in saying that even though Bandile Masuku may have not been found guilty or the Integrity Commission may have not found any links of fraud and corruption in the awarding of this particular tender of 127 million rands to Royal Pata, but there are other issues, political issues that need to be looked at in the issue of the performance of the MEC of Health, the performance of the MMC of Shared and Corporate Services in Johannesburg. That would be the wife of Bandile Masuku, Mrs. Lesiba Masuku, also the Deputy Regional Secretary of the ANC in the region of Johannesburg. Then you've got the relationship of Bandile Masuku, Kusela Tiko, and the spouse Lesiba, which is also coming onto the fore. But what is seemingly came out of this Provincial Executive Committee meeting of the African National Congress and of this report of the PIC to the PEC is that the PEC was not happy with the work that the Integrity Commission has done and with the final product that it came out, because it was not providing any clarity of any wrongdoing that Bandile Masuku, Lesiba Masuku and Kusela Tiko may have done, and that there is no finding, particularly when it comes to the issue of fraud and corruption on their part, if there is any of that has taken place. In fact, it found that there is no nature of corruption that is there between the trio when it comes to the awarding of this particular contract. And then the issue of the SIU then comes up, that if the SIU report is damaging, then the PEC of the ANC in Gauteng will have to take action against the MEC, the MMC, the Kusela Tiko, and also who's also they are all Kusela Tiko being a PwC and a PEC member, Lesiba Masuku being an REC member of the ANC in the city of Johannesburg in that particular region, and MMC. So it also looks at these veracity and how that particular report of government, which has the forensic and legal capabilities to investigate and any wrongdoing when it comes to the issues of fraud and corruption within that particular department. You'd remember that also their lawyers had also come into the fore to go and seek representation when it goes to the issues of the SIU.
Samkele, just very, very briefly, we have run out of time. Do we know when it's likely a decision will be definitively made?
A decision will definitively be made within the next 2 weeks, which is essentially what has been declared by the ANC's Provincial Executive Committee when their meeting was closing this afternoon, that the PwC and the officials of the African National Congress will engage further on this particular report to try and get more information, as the report that was provided by the PIC was inadequate and contradictory. They will also be engaging government to speed up the SIU investigation and then conclude their work and go report back to the ANC's Provincial Executive Committee and ultimately inform the province of the decision whether these three particular leaders of the ANC in Gauteng have to be removed from or step down from the structure of being members of the Provincial Executive Committee, and they've also got to step down in their functions in government.
Samkele,
what is going to be interesting is whether Kusela Tiko will remain on leave of absence in government.
All right, thank you very much, Samkele. We're going to have to leave it there. SABC political reporter Samkele Maseko. Now, let's analyze this. Let's unpack it. Political Analyst Professor Lesiba Teffo joins us now to talk about these developments. Prof, a very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us. First of all, what is your reaction to this, an extension of the leave of absence of the Gauteng Health MEC on the basis that the PEC says the PIC report is inadequate and contradictory?
It's partly what I expected that would happen. Look, at the heart of all this is not so much the content or the allegations, it's the process, policies and procedures that one should look at here. The conflation of state and party, the blurring of the lines between state and party, and the doctrine of the separation of powers also come into play. You're talking here about people deployed by their political party. Can the political party fire them? In terms of labor law, no. They have their employers. The employer is the one who can. And this game can be played, and it's a political football for me, and I don't see how far it will go, right? And if anything, it's more damaging to the party. Maybe they should have just left due process as per the employer's contract of employment to take its course.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, Prof, because one of the things that I was asking Samkele is about the legal standing of the Provincial Integrity Committee and how binding its decisions can be. And I also want to speak to what you are mentioning, the issue of process and procedure. Is there clarity, policy on some of the things that are being discussed here? Conflict of interest, this thing of him not managing the public perception, that is the MEC, the issue of not doing enough in terms of accountability?
I hold no brief for Masuku. but he comes across for me as committed and competent. But sometimes it's the people around you that you must be wary of. I think one of the lines I came across is in my studies of politics and philosophy is that the person you should worry most in politics is not your opponent, is your colleague in the same camp with you. And Masuku right now, all the troubles he has are in the main offered by the people closest to him. And out of trust or loyalty to the party, I think he did certain things that out of good conscience, had he not been deployed, but elected by the electorate on the ground, he wouldn't have done.
It's very interesting that you should say that, Professor Teffo, because there is word of divisions behind closed doors within the PEC about his fate. And I'm wondering, does it come down to these issues of how do you measure accountability, credibility, and honesty?
And those things, Sepi, are really, really not something that you and I should be discussing, especially in relation to the African National Congress. They have a document that I've got immense respect for. It is called Through the Eye of the Needle. Had they followed that document 15 years ago, possibly there would be challenges, but not as dire as this. Had they listened when others said, stop cadre deployment and appointing people on merit, they wouldn't be where they are today. Had they listened when some people said, stop the tender system and build state capacity, they wouldn't be where they are today. And I repeat what I said then, and I'll continue on this mantra. The source of all the problems we have in the country is the tender system. Can we get rid of it, please? Masuku is where he is. And I don't hear anybody imputing criminality or fraud to him. He just found himself caught up in a spider web.
I want to talk about this intangible thing called influence, vis-a-vis what you're raising, the lack of capacity at state level. The Auditor General, for instance, was saying that there are insufficient controls to ensure receipt and payment of PPE at level of quality and price audit. So how do these two measure up against each other, influence vis-a-vis state capacity?
Look, what we don't lack are policies, are systems. They are there in place. It's the human factor that matters. You can have all those, but it's the human factor that matters. And underpinned by the sense of impunity engendered and nurtured in the past 15 years, people don't worry at all. It's all about how strong is your affection, and then you've got cover. Yes, since Ramaphosa came on board, I must admit, there are some positive movements, but a lot still has to be done. The culture of corruption is so endemic and so close to the bone. It will take, I doubt, if really the ANC can transcend the challenges it is faced with, especially in relation to corruption.
Thank you so much for speaking to us, Professor Lesiba Teffo, who's an analyst. And of course, some of the things that the Auditor General was pointing out was the lack of valid tax clearance certificates, talking about quotation and competitive bidding processes not being correctly applied, conflicts of interest. We spoke about that in awarding of contracts, and we spoke about that issue of insufficient controls as well. And PPE sometimes not arriving at intended recipients. We'll continue keeping an eye on this issue. And still on news around the ANC, the Interim Provincial Committee in the Northwest Province saying it will further engage councillors defying instructions to resign. 15 councillors were supposed to have resigned from 5 municipalities in the province because the ANC said they had failed to provide leadership. They include mayors, speakers,